Hello, it's Jay, checking in again with Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. This is Chapter 2, The Vocabulary of Comics, which very much is dealing with the strange and wonderful world of the icon. And by icon, I'm using it to mean to any image to represent a person, place, thing, or idea. So we've got it doesn't want to use symbol being sort of one category of icons, which are used to represent concepts, ideas, and philosophies. And he's got various like peace symbols. It's got a swastika. It's got a exon. Got a cracked bell. Got a lot of that thing. And then we've got the icons of language, which is like letters, numbers, question mark, exclamation, plus, minus, dollar signs, musical notation, got a thought bubble, various things. And then there's what we call picture images, which actually resemble their subject. And whereas in non-pictorial icons, they have a fixed and absolute meaning. In pictures, there's a lot more kind of a fluid. It's fluid and variable. According to the appearance, they differ. They differ from real life appearances to varying degrees. And I mean, a lot of this chapter is talking about the varying degrees of going from pictorial representation to slightly abstracted to like sort of more kind of like cartoon face from an adventure comic to maybe a kind of a comic strip to the very most basic of like a circle, two dots, and a straight line. And just noting how human beings are interesting in how much or why are we so involved with that, why that when we get to a picture like this we can't help but seeing a face there, that's actually what we see. And it's like the fact that your mind is capable of taking a circle and two dots and a line and turning them into a face is nothing short of incredible. And still more incredible is the fact that you cannot avoid seeing a face here. Your mind wouldn't let you. And he sort of does make the example of how many things that we kind of project ourselves on, that as the human race is very, very self-centered, in that we see faces everywhere, that you could have a whole bunch of kind of abstract shapes here. If you put eyes on them, suddenly they become, we construct them as faces. We are projecting in. That's one of those things of the printing thing of, you can see all the kind of the smudges there. It's like, it's a much better printing than the original printing, which I've seen on the KFAB channel, but it's still not perfect. He kind of goes into like, thinking of a face as a mask. This section, this is a rather long chapter. In some ways, it's like, okay, you're kind of getting this out here. I don't know how much I'm interested. It's the philosophy behind comics, or trying to explain why we are so involved in comics. And there's this idea of mask, that your face is a mask, that while you see other people's faces in very kind of concrete, very, very specific detail, the image that you have of yourself carrying around is probably just sort of a couple of the essentials. And who knows, maybe it's a younger self, maybe it's an idealized self, maybe it's an unidealized self, but it is a cartoonish face. It's just you boiled down to some essences. And that's sort of interesting, because then when you come across a cartoon face, a very simplified circle, two dots and a line, you're much liable to project yourself into that, to identify with that character. Which is why he makes actually the point that there's a lot of cartoonists, while their backgrounds will be very detailed and kind of more on the realistic side of things, that the characters, that especially the main characters, will have more of this cartoony, simplified look, to allow the reader to actually the reader, to actually kind of project themselves into that. And indeed, if you have someone who's an antagonist, you might actually make them more detailed, less cartoony, to make them more of an other that as the antagonist to your more cartoony protagonist. Which and that is one technique. He definitely makes a point of saying there's different cartoonists in different cultures have many different kind of techniques, different kind of approaches to stuff like this. There's very much the idea of how what we identify with. We go into there's a lot of stuff here, but the idea that a cartoon may have more to, especially the more cartoony cartoon, more simplified, may have more of an idea of the concepts of the objects over their actual physical appearance. So you omit a lot. And then if an artist wants to portray the beauty and complexity of the physical world, then they're going to go more towards kind of realism, more actually trying to duplicate what they see, kind of going from coffee cup and a glass to a glass much more realistically rendered. This is the concept of a glass. This is more of an effort to actually duplicate what that glass might actually physically be in that setting. It all probably culminates in this, which is his kind of a triangle concept of how to represent this, where we have reality, basically kind of photorealistic stuff on this side, all the way over to that very simple circle face, and then all the various different examples of the face. But that's not the only level that we go from realistic to iconography. We also go from reality to a picture plane, where at the very top we have, this is like abstract painting, where you have, it's all about the paint, it's all about the shapes that are on the thing. It's not representational, and so where this is representational. It's representing a face, whereas up here there's just a circle. There's no eyes. There's just that. And indeed, there's nobody at the very top apparently, but there's someone just down, number 1, which is Mary Fleener at her most abstracted. And 98 here is a thing I think is from Pogo. 98 is probably, where is it? 98 is Jeff Smith's Bone, and then Mickey Mouse beside, and Tintin, and that's where we get into that kind of mixing of the thing. Tintin himself is very is on the kind of the abstracted side of thing, but his backgrounds in his work are far more on the realist side. Maybe not photorealist, but further along this scale. So in your mixing and matching for certain effects, some people mix and match, some people it's all cartoony or it's all realistic, and various things. So I mean, it's an interesting concept, and it's interesting as we go past an abstract thing of a face. Then we get into symbols, which are language symbols, are face, and it might be, and there's within language, you can go from being very kind of concrete language to only describing very specific things, to getting over into abstract concepts about stuff, and probably also a rose is a rose is a rose, getting into just pure language poetry, where it's all about the shapes of the language and stuff like that, and it's got nothing to do about characters. So you can see how this kind of splits out, and he uses it to kind of variously describe other people. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I picked up the book, I guess, is that I struggle when I'm talking about artists to say, oh, well, this person's more cartoony, and this one's more realistic. This actually does give me another plane to kind of consider things, of going from going from reality, photorealistic, to going, going up the scale there, into the picture plane, where it's much more about the picture, and kind of some of the squiggles aren't actually meant there to actually represent anything. They're just they're more about the art, about the kind of the artist's kind of style, than which would probably push it more up here than down there, or done for different, different effects and stuff like that. So I don't know if I have much more to say about that chapter. Um, you know, he uses examples. Yeah, so like Mary Fleener varies only slightly in her level of iconic content, while in the level of non-iconic abstraction goes from nearly the top to the bottom. And then so there's various examples of her art, versus, you've got Kirby and Stan Lee with the Fantastic Four, where it's staked out a middle ground of iconic forms with a sense of real about them, bolstered by a powerful sense of design. And then we've got mainstream comics today, which this is the 90s, but talking about desire for more realistic art and more elaborate scripts has pushed art and story further apart in many cases. So it's going further towards reality, and the story side of things is kind of pushing more towards a middle of a little bit more of a kind of a complex representational story. Whereas, yeah, over here with Kirby, it's more iconic, and and the stories are fairly still kind of on the simple side of things. So yeah, it is one way of, especially if you're somebody who's trying to talk about comics, it's probably something that's might be useful. I may find useful. I will see. But that whole thing of going from realistic to iconic, and going from being very much here. Let me get. I have to that plane again, of going from here. They've got a simplified one here, which is going from being about kind of story about character and stuff like that, to shifting to just strictly about the picture frame, and going from a realistic photo, slightly more realistic, getting kind of the faces thing being pretty abstract picture. You can almost just barely see a face in there, to just simply just being the shapes again. Where, yeah, this is up here, the picture plane this is the realm of art, of the art object. The picture plane, where shapes and lines and colors can be themselves and not pretend to be otherwise. He starts off this chapter with is it Magritte? Is it Magritte? It's the picture of the pipe that says underneath it, yes, Magritte's picture of the treachery of images, which shows an image of a pipe. Underneath, in French, it says, "This is not a pipe," where he gets very kind of college student, and it's like, this is not a painting of a pipe. This is a drawing of a painting of a pipe. Oh, actually, no, wrong again. This is a printed copy of a drawing of a painting of a pipe. So it's 10 copies. Well, 6 if you fold the page. 6 if you fold the pages back. So, yeah, that's that it does get a little bit up its own ass. But that idea of I'm going to take from this chapter, it's that from going from realistic to real iconic icon, to from down here a very kind of a representational, to being up here of being abstract, being strictly on the picture plane, is what I'll take from this chapter, and maybe hopefully be able to use when I'm talking about comics. I don't know, as someone who is a comic artist, I don't know how much you will take from this chapter. I'll actually have to go watch the KFAB guys and hear what they had to say about it. But yeah, that is chapter 2, section chapter 2, or section 2, the vocabulary of comics. And next will be blood in the gutter. Bum, bum, bum. More videos later. I've been Jay.